Hey guys, it's Toby and this is how to build a mini-ITX gaming PC. A quick rundown of the specs: we have an AMD Ryzen 5 5600X processor with 6 cores and 12 threads clocked at 3.7 GHz. Our motherboard is the ROG Strix B550i Gaming by Asus. It's mini-ITX, which means it will fit in our case, and it's got all the connectivity options we need. We've got 16GB of Corsair RAM, 2 sticks of 8, clocked at 3600 MHz. For our storage, we're going to be using an ADATA 2TB XPG SX8200 M.2 drive. Our graphics card is an RTX 30A, a GTX 970. Yeah, the 3.5GB variant. The one that Nvidia got taken to court for. Yeah. Our pre-orders for 3080s and 3070s unfortunately fell through at the time of making this build, and at the time of making this video it is still practically impossible to find one, especially one that will fit in our case, the NZXT H1. The H1 is an extremely small form factor case, and you can see the size comparison here next to an NZXT H440, a standard ATX case. The H1 also includes a 650W 80 plus gold certified power supply. This is pre-installed along with a 140mm all-in-one liquid cooler. This is a very nice case which you may have seen before for a completely different reason. It is a fire hazard due to problems with the riser cable. So, what could possibly go wrong? Step 1. Take your motherboard out of the box it comes in and the anti-static bag it comes in. You can place the motherboard itself on top of the box, that's fine. Just make sure you don't place it anywhere that can conduct electricity, otherwise you risk the motherboard and your other components getting damaged. Step 2. Installing the CPU. Get your CPU out of the little plastic shell it comes in, do not touch the gold pins, and look for the little gold triangle. The triangle has to line up with a similar shaped triangle on the socket for the processor on the motherboard. So you lift the lever up, you align the triangles, and you just drop it in place and it should sit perfectly. Then you just lower the lever and the CPU is locked in place. Step 3. Installing the RAM. This is very similar to how we installed the CPU. Get it out of the plastic case it comes in and look for the notches. These notches line up with the motherboard RAM slots, which also have notches in them. They're not symmetrical, which means they can only go in one way. So, lower the latch on the motherboard for your RAM and then start to place them in. Once they're in, you just have to apply a bit of force and the latch and RAM will click into place. Do this again for the second stick and you're good to go. Step 4. Installing the storage. Installing the storage is usually quite straightforward. All you have to do is slot the M.2 drive in and screw it in place. However, as we found out, this was easier said than done. So, most new motherboards come with inbuilt heatsinks for M.2 drives. Normally you have to unscrew it, put your M.2 in, then screw it in place, and then screw the heatsink back on. But as you can see here, we struggled to unscrew the M.2 heatsink. A common problem with this motherboard apparently. However, this wasn't too much of an issue as we just flipped the motherboard around and used the alternative M.2 slot on the back. Step 5. Installing the I/O shield. Installing the I/O shield is very straightforward and it should be one of the first things you do after you take off the side panels on your case. The I/O shield itself pops into the back of the case in the little cutout. Just be careful not to cut yourself as it is very sharp. The soft side should be on the inside. Step 6. Installing the motherboard. This is pretty straightforward once you have the I/O shield in place. Just make sure the I/O panel on the motherboard lines up with the I/O shield. Make sure the holes on the motherboard line up with the screws on the case itself, the standoffs. And all you have to do is align them and screw them in place. Ideally you screw one corner in first and then another corner. As you can see here, we're kind of struggling again, but we got there in the end. Step 7. Motherboard connections. Once the motherboard is in place and screwed in, then you need to hook everything else up. Now the connectivity options do vary on a case, motherboard and power supply level. However, everything will have a 24-pin power cable, which is the big one coming from the power supply, an 8-pin CPU power cable, front panel headers, connections for USB 3 and USB 2, so on and so forth. Not all of the headers on the motherboard need to be filled, just make sure that everything coming from your case is connected to the motherboard and everything from the power supply is connected to the motherboard as required. Step 8. Installing the cooling solution. Now with the NZXT H1 we have an integrated 140mm all-in-one liquid cooler. We're going to be using this, and to use this we need to replace the Intel mount with the AMD mount, which essentially puts two brackets on the side of it. To install it, all we have to do is make sure the latches go onto the little standoffs to the left and right of the CPU. It might take a bit of force, but after a while it sits flush against the CPU, and that's that. Step 10. Connecting the graphics card. We're almost there. With the NZXT H1 we have to use a riser cable to mount the graphics card vertically in the case. This just goes onto the motherboard and comes around, which allows us to mount the 970 like this. Installing the graphics card is very straightforward. You just have to take a couple of the brackets off on the back to ensure that the card fits, and then you have to install it onto the PCI Express lane. It only goes one way, do not force it, there is a little notch. Once you have the card in place on the PCI lane, just screw it back in place where the IO ports are, and then attach the PCI Express power cables. These go on the top of the graphics card usually, and they're 8-pin or 16-pin. Step 11, the moment of truth. So now that we've connected everything we need to in the NZXT H1, it is time to put the panels back on the case. After that, we have it on our desk, and then it is time to see if it posts. And here we go. 3, 2, 1. So yeah, as you can see here, the PC did not post. Posting is when you make it to the BIOS screen. The BIOS is the first screen you want to see after building a new PC. This is why this video is entitled Part 1 of how to build a mini-ITX gaming PC. Subscribe and join us for more content, and see Part 2, where we'll show you exactly what to do once you make it to the BIOS, once we get this thing up and running, and hopefully with a 30 series card. We have to wait and see. But until then, we'll catch you next time.